Hey, welcome back to With the First Pick. The NFL regular season is officially over. The draft order is set for those top 18 picks. So what better time than to fire up a mock draft, but this time only for those teams that did not make the playoffs. I'm Ryan Wilson, that's former Titans GM Rand Carthon. And Rand, I'm interested to hear how you feel about this. There are 107 days until the 2026 NFL draft in Pittsburgh, PA. Are you ready, sir?
No, I'm not. I was just sitting here thinking as you were doing the intro, I was like, man, we need to keep track of how many actual mock drafts we end up doing. Like that's where I'm interested in right now. Like forget the amount of days we have until the draft. That's going to come. I want to keep track of how many actual mock drafts we do.
I think it's fair to say that 107 number could probably serve as both days until and mock drafts done thus far. So we're pretty close for both. All right, Rand, so we're still waiting to hear which of these quarterbacks will declare for the draft. But if you had to guess before we get going here, how many QBs end up going in the first round 107 days from now?
Well, no spoiler alert. I mean, in our mock that we're doing today, we have 3 going. How many will actually? I'll stay at that number and say 3 will be total. Again, it all depends on who comes out, and we'll see here over the next few days or so. But I mean, still, I don't expect it to be any more than 3 going in the first round.
All right. Well, we'll have to find out together. A lot of guys have already returned to school. 2 or 3 guys could decide to return to school among the quarterbacks we're going to talk about here in a moment. I don't think all 3 go back. That would be pretty crazy. 2 feels realistic, but we'll find out together. By the way, if you're watching us on YouTube, let us know in the comments how many QBs you think will go in round 1. And maybe a more interesting question, and Rand, I'll pose this to you before we get going here. Is this quarterback class stronger or weaker than last year's quarterback class, where we only saw 2 quarterbacks go in the first round? Cam Ward went first overall, and of course, the Giants traded back into round 1 to get Jackson Dart, which in hindsight, Jackson maybe should have been a top 5 pick. What do you think, Rand? This class, as we sit here, stronger or weaker? Because in August, everyone and their brother said stronger.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's probably on par, but I would say weaker, just from a totality standpoint. Because I think if you, and I hate to do it this way, but if you put this group of quarterbacks into last year's class, it's like, all right, how many actually go truly first round? Right. And I would say maybe 2 out of this group, but they would probably go below the guys that went in the first round last year. And then we're talking about Tyler Shuck, who was the 40th pick. We're talking about him potentially as the offensive rookie of the year in the second round. So I'll say it's slightly weaker. But like you said, man, at the start of the year, this was supposed to be the class. There were some teams who you and I know for certain were saying, hey, we're going to hedge our bet on next year's draft class, feeling like this 2026 class was going to be significantly stronger and significantly deeper.
Yeah, Bernard Squavius let us down, but he will be back to fight again another day in 2026. All right, let's do this mock draft right here, right now. The top 18 picks of those teams currently not in the playoffs. Rand, you will take the odd picks. I will take the even, which means the Raiders won in Week 18, which is a pleasant surprise. They fired their head coach, not so pleasant, but now they have the first overall pick nonetheless. This feels, as I like to say, uncomplicated. Are you going to complicate it or not?
Yeah, I'm complicated, man. So I want to propose a trade. No, I'm joking. This
people got fired up right quick in the comments.
Worst kept secret in the NFL right now. Going with my man Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, quarterback. Seems like the right fit. And again, I mean, and you and I, we've talked about Fernando since last May and how much we've liked him. I will say this. You can say whatever you want to say about him from a personality perspective. I know that's what people are going to nitpick on. I'll say from a personality standpoint, he does remind me of a Kirk Cousins from that standpoint. But again, tell me anytime you've heard any of Kirk Cousins' teammates say anything bad about him in terms of his leadership, in terms of him being a guy in the locker room. And even with that being said, who better to go to Vegas than a Fernando Mendoza as a person? I know his teammates will, there are going to be some guys that try to get him out. And I know there'll be a time where he goes and hang out just for camaraderie, but I think he is best suited to handle everything that comes with being in Vegas on a day-to-day basis. But then on the football field, this guy has an elite trait, and that elite trait is his ball placement and toughness. And so you love that about him. And right now, with the way this offensive line looks, in Vegas, he's going to have to stand in some muddy pockets, and he's going to have to take hits in order to deliver the ball. And man, we've seen him do that at Cal. We've seen him do that at times at Indiana. So I think he is the best fit for the Raiders at number 1.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple folks in the league, and you mentioned this as well, that mentioned Kirk Cousins, and to your point, they all said the same thing. Who doesn't like Kirk Cousins? And if you win, and you pointed this out, it doesn't matter how quirky or silly you may be, and sometimes you prefer that to guys who maybe are standoffish or don't get along with other people in the locker room. By the way, as you were saying that, if anyone in this draft class like knew how to count cards and like was really good at like sneakily being good at poker or blackjack, it would 100% be Fernando Mendoza. So maybe he does not need to be in Vegas, but I think that's a layup pick. All right, let us know in the comments if you agree with that pick or if you like another pick. Quarterback-wise for the Raiders, that feels like a layup, but sometimes, folks disagree with our thoughts on that. Next up, the New York Jets, boy, the Jets would be really upset if they weren't picking here number 2, given the way that season went. AG is going to be back, it looks like. Darren Muji, the GM, is going to be back as well. Another layup for me, Rand. Maybe if this were 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, we're having a conversation about Dante Moore, Ty Simpson. I'm going with Dante Moore. And you and I have spoken about it. He still doesn't know yet what he's going to do in terms of coming out. Is there an argument in your mind to going back to Oregon if you're going to be the number 2 overall pick?
No, I mean, and we've talked about it before. We say it tongue in cheek. I mean, we know Uncle Phil's pockets are deep. We know Nike's pockets are deep. But at the same time, you're looking to go back to a school where you're going to make, let's just call it $5 to $6 million for 1 year versus for sure you're going to get a guaranteed $40 million being the number 2 overall pick. Now, again, I respect this young kid because he cares about the craft and he cares about his personal development because he chose to go to Oregon to sit behind Dylan Gabriel to recalibrate and give himself some time to mature and grow as a football player. So him having these conversations with his family and his representation, I mean, it doesn't surprise me because he actually cares. So I actually respect that about him. But if I'm his family, if I'm his dad, if I'm his advisors, I'm telling him, son, you have to come out. Because let's be real, if he comes out next year, let's just say the quarterback who we shall not name actually continues to play at the level that he's been playing at, is he going to really go number 1 next year? So why not come out now where you can potentially be the number 2 pick and you'll be a year closer in terms of free agency and being able to hit that big money later on?
Yeah. The other question, of course, is how do players and agents feel, whether free agents or draft eligible, about going to play for Woody Johnson? Now, the lot's changed there. They have a new GM. They have a new head coach. Our buddy Rick Spielman's over there. Does any of that play into perhaps going number 2 overall as opposed to saying, you know what, I'll stay in college for another year for $5 million?
Nah, I mean, because at the end of the day, man, it's about being able to, I mean, obviously you want to play the game, but then there's the business side to it, and everything has to line. It has to make sense. And, right. If you're this young man, you don't want to even, it's so much stuff. You got to risk, you're risking injury, and then it becomes the whole thing with insurance policies. And I don't even want to go down that whole rabbit hole. But again, if you're Dante Moore, if you're his family, if you're his representation, if you know for certain that you have a legitimate shot at being a number 2 pick, you got to come out.
All right. No, that all makes sense, but I like to check those boxes because people have those questions, and that's why you are, I'm the face, you're the brains of the operation. So that's why I have you. Why are you giving the side eye here? All right. Next up, number 3 overall, the Arizona Cardinals, who fired their coach, Jonathan Gannon. Maybe mildly surprising. It sounded like maybe they were going to keep him around, and they decided obviously not to. Monty Ossenfort, the GM, is still there. Rance recovering from that brutal shot by me about me being the handsome one on the show. I understand that. All right, what are we doing? As you giggle here, Arizona Cardinals need a quarterback.
Listen, we made this choice yesterday, just without understanding that they were firing their head coach, and so without knowing who the head coach is going to be and what they're going to value. Obviously, they need a quarterback, but we don't know if that quarterback is going to be available, and I don't know that there's anybody that can come out right now that would be worthy of the number 3 pick. So I just went best player available here and went Arvell Reese. He's a chess piece that you can move around. You can play him off the ball. You can rush him off the edge. And I think he'd just be a really good fit to pair up in that defense with a young Walter Nolan, Will Johnson, and a veteran guy like Josh Sweat, guys who all perform really well. And in that division, you have 3 12-win teams in that division with some high-powered offenses. You better have a defense that's going to be prepared to stop them. And I think Arvell Reese is them taking another step in the right direction in that realm.
Yeah, it'd be the 3rd straight year they went defense. Darius Robinson was their first-round pick a few years ago. He's battled injuries, but Walter Nolan was injured early, and then he came on, and he was exactly who we thought he was going to be. So you just keep stocking it up till you get it right. All right, top 3 in the board here. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, let's see what the Tennessee Titans do when they're on the clock right after this. All right, Rand, we are back to do the old mock draft for the top 18 picks. Those are all the teams that are currently out of the playoffs, and those picks are locked. I'd imagine there'll be some trades going down in the next 107 days, but for now, we're just going to go right through the list. 1 through 3 in the books. Number 4, the Tennessee Titans are on the clock. And, you know, there was a time not too long ago where you might think about a wide receiver, maybe not in this range, maybe if they traded down. But I give Alec Ayuminor and Chimere Dike a lot of credit. They played pretty well as rookies under some trying circumstances. Your guy Gunnar Helm played well as a rookie tight end. So I went with the best defensive lineman in this class, and it's going to be a pretty thin class as we sit here unless something changes drastically. Peter Woods out of Clemson, number 4 overall. And I'll ask you, as someone who drafted Tavondre Sweat, who was in the building for Jeffrey Simmons, can you have enough big guys on the interior in Tennessee wreaking havoc?
No, especially, again, in that division. You talked about this big offensive line in Indianapolis and the way they like to run the football. And, man, I mean, imagine getting off the bus, you're a defensive coordinator, and you have Tavondre Sweat at nose, Jeffrey Simmons, who's probably should be first-team All-Pro this year with the way he performed. He was unblockable this season. And then you add a Peter Woods. Like, good luck to people in the AFC South, just with having this defensive line. And it gives you a guy on the interior in those sub situations. You don't have to reduce a defensive end or an outside linebacker inside. You have 2 guys in Jeffrey Simmons and Peter Woods that can win in terms of pass rush on the interior. So I love the pick for them. Don't know that they'll necessarily do it just because you have much greater needs. And they have gotten really good production out of Sebastian Joseph Day as the other starter on that D line. But, man, you talk about getting off the bus. You let those 3, Sweat, Simmons, and Peter Woods, you let them get off the bus first.
Hey, when you talk about reducing guys inside in sub packages, that's sort of the conversation we're probably going to have about Rueben Bain Jr., who's the edge rusher for Miami, who has a chance to be a top 10 pick. But the question is, where do you play him at 275 with shortish arms? Is that right? Is that a question you're going to have to figure out about him?
Yeah, I mean, having a guy like that with his skill set and being able to reduce inside, what that does is it allows you to get your best 4 rushers on the field, right? It was kind of, and I'm not comparing them to this guy because they're different in size, but I'm just talking about the role. It's kind of like Danico Autry, a guy like that, having a guy that plays on the edge and first and second down and can get wins here and there on the edge, but then you reduce him inside as a rusher in those sub packages. And again, it just allows you to get your best 4 guys on the field. Some people will call it your NASCAR look, your speed package, where you essentially have 4 defensive ends inside. But even a guy like Rueben Bain, who has real power, and we'll talk about him, at some point in these picks, but a guy like that has real power, like he can hold up in those third down situations where you have them on the field and they decide to run the ball. He actually can hold up in there. May not be ideal at 275, like you said, but he's plenty powerful, plenty strong, and I think he can hold up in there.
Yeah, maybe that ends up being not a bug, but a feature for him when you try to knock him. Maybe that's something that makes him even more versatile. All right, next up, the New York Giants are now on the clock at number 5 here, and there's a lot of directions you can go. They need a head coach. Joe Shane, the GM, is staying. What are you going to do for Jackson Dart in that offense?
Yeah, I mean, you could have easily gone offensive line here. You could have easily gone in some other directions. But with the sense of Jackson Dart being your quarterback moving forward, you saw the way the season ended when Malik Neighbors went down and Wan'Dale Robinson became your number one target in the passing game. And with Wan'Dale being a free agent, you don't want to overcommit money there just based off of the production that he's had because he's still 5'8", 5'9". And in the coming years, you got to pay Malik Neighbors. So I went with wide receiver Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. Might be a little high, depending on how you see him. Might be a smidge high. But who else? He would be a good player to play opposite of a Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors can do it all. You can put him in the slot. You can put him outside. He can run vertical. He can run routes. But the thing I love about Carnell Tate and the role he's had to play at Ohio State, he's always had to be Robin to someone's Batman. And he can lean into that role and still have his production and then be able to, stretch the field vertically and go up in those 50-50 jump ball situations and come down with the ball. So he'll give Jackson Dart a reliable pass catcher. And now you know that if either one of these guys go down, you still have a legitimate guy you could feature in the passing game. So I gave Jackson Dart just another weapon to build around him as he will be the future of the Giants at the quarterback position. See, Giants fans, in the comments, I know, look, I gave Jackson Dart his love. Can y'all leave me alone now, please? Thank you.
No, they cannot. I mean, that you want to trigger somebody, you say Jackson Dart, and then anything not glowing after the word Dart. Here's the thing, maybe Carnell Tate's higher here at 5. I love it because if you sort of go back in history here and you told me that the Bengals took Joe Burrow and then they got him Jamar Chase and then they took a top 10 pick on T. Higgins, who was eventually a second-round pick, retrospectively, that would be a great move because that offense is unstoppable when Joe Burrow is healthy. You add in Theo Johnson, who's coming along as a tight end when he's healthy for the Giants. You have your guy Cam Scatterbo when he's healthy. And now it's all starting to come together. So maybe you overpay by 4 or 5 picks in terms of where you take Carnell Tate. I think it's absolutely worth it if you get 70% of the production that Joe Burrow and company give you.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you used T. Higgins because that's the role I envision for Carnell Tate. I see him and we know Jamar Chase is a clear-cut number one wide receiver in this league. We know that. That's not an argument. But, depending on the team, if T. Higgins was on someone else's team, it could be a 1A, 1B type situation. Now, in a perfect world, I think T. Higgins is a really good number 2, which is where I envision Carnell Tate as well. So I think that type of role is perfect for him. Like you said, you just saw the numbers that went away. You averaged 17 yards a catch on the season. That's impressive. And you had 9 touchdowns in an offense that featured Jeremiah Smith. And you had the young running back in Bo Jackson that came along and performed really well for him. And so there weren't a ton of opportunities, but he made the most of every single opportunity that he got, even going back to his previous year playing that. And that's why I said he was always the Robin to someone else's Batman.
Yeah, and there are worse things to be. You could be the Penguin or the Joker. So Robin ain't all bad, especially if they update that costume they make you wear. Giants fans, let us know what you think about that pick. Would you rather go in another direction? You want an offensive lineman instead? I think the Carnell Tate pick makes a ton of sense, especially if you're trying to continue to develop Jackson Dart. Next up, the Cleveland Browns here. Won 2 games to win the season. Great news. Kevin Stefanski still got fired, and they went from having probably the number 2 or number 3 pick to the number 6 pick. They also have another pick later in the first round by way of the Jaguars and that Travis Hunter deal. I have him going with CeCe Mauioga, the right tackle for the U. I suppose quarterback could be in play here, but they drafted 2 guys last year, Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. So, Rand, not knowing the head coaching situation, and Andrew Berry, the GM, is going to certainly lead that charge along with the owner, Jimmy Haslam. Are you rolling with the 2 rookie quarterbacks? We heard Andrew Berry say that he thinks Deshaun Watson will be on the roster next year, or are you thinking about rolling the dice here, number 6 for a Ty Simpson in real world?
Well, I don't know that I'll say it this way. I don't know that they're going to roll with either one of these rookies. I don't know that. But for whatever reason, I get a feel of don't sleep on Deshaun Watson, right? Because he's going to be there just because of contractually he's going to be there. And no matter what the money that's owed to him, they got to pay it regardless. And so I don't think Deshaun Watson is just going to come into camp and lay down and not want, and allow these rookies to beat him out. If they make it an open competition, Deshaun Watson legitimately has a chance to win it. And it doesn't matter who the quarterback is, you got to be able to protect them better. And we saw where, and I don't want to call anybody out, but I mean, they had some abysmal play at the tackle position, particularly the left tackle position. There were moments where you're watching Cam Robinson and it felt like he just forgot how to play football and didn't have pride in just setting a firm pocket. And so you have to be able to go out and show him up. And I'm drawing a blank right now, but the big tackle that they took, DeJuan Jones, he should be returning and will probably be over at the left tackle spot, most likely. And then if you add a CC Mauioga, we know this guy, if nothing else, nobody's going to run down the middle of him. He's going to set a firm pocket. He'll be able to anchor versus power. And I know you hate this, but he could also kick into guard and become one of your best five if you have, someone else. But I do think at some point you got 2 first-round picks. If you're the Browns, you have to address the tackle spot because, with KT Levinson out there and Cam Robinson out there, it just didn't happen. We could crucify both of these young quarterbacks for everything they weren't, but they were under constant duress. And a lot of those tough throws they were forced to make was with people in their face because the protection couldn't hold up.
Yeah, Wyatt Teller and Joel Patonia, their contracts are up as well, and they may not be back. Battled injuries as well. You talked about Cam Robinson, his contract's up, so they got it. They have to do something. Before we go to break here, Browns fans, just tell me 2 words. Who do you want your quarterback to be at the start of 2026 next September? Let us know in the comments. All right, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, the Commanders are on the clock. 2 of the edge rushers, 2 of the best edge rushers still on the board. Let's see what they do right after this break. All right, Rand, 6 picks in. Going to get to pick 18 here. All those teams that are currently outside the playoffs, and the draft order is locked for those top 18 picks. Number 7, Washington Commanders here. Disappointing season, largely because their franchise quarterback couldn't stay healthy here. But Von Miller, who's only a couple years younger than you, led the team in sacks. He had a big season, and that's not exactly where you want to be. So what are you going to do for the Commanders that desperately need help, especially on the front 4?
Well, I mean, it's already on the board. On the screen now. So going with Rueben Bain Jr. out of the U. Back-to-back picks for the U. I know I've probably been as critical of him as anybody on this entire platform. But watching him play the other night against Ohio State, I think this guy he had a killer instinct about himself that I hadn't seen. We know he always plays hard. He plays full tilt. So you always respected that about him. But he just had a certain air about him the other night that had a killer instinct. And he just wreaked havoc the entire game. Now, from understanding Dan Quinn and what he likes, and people forget Dan Quinn was a former defensive line coach. So he knows and understands D-line play. I know Dan Quinn likes the guys that are on the taller side with longer arms. But if there's somebody to make an exception for, is a guy like Rueben Bain, because he is, you love the way he plays. And like I mentioned before, when we talked about Arvell Reese and some of the other guys, like this dude has legitimate power. And you'll never be able to negate that. He has legitimate power. And like you mentioned, Ryan, you can be able to reduce him, kick him inside where he can rush from some 4-eye techniques and give him 2-way goals over some guards. So I like him here. I could very well see a Keldric Faulk type guy because he fits the profile a little bit more. But it'll be interesting just to see how Rueben Bain goes, because I know what I feel and I know what I've seen on tape, and I'm never going to discount what I saw on tape. And so I'm going to always stand firm on that. But I have to give this dude the respect that he's earned. I still think, and I'm not ishing on him at this point, but I still think Akeem Messidor is a more instinctive and natural rusher than Rueben Bain is. And I think the world of Messidor, because I think he's going to be a problem as well, being able to rush inside. But this will be a good pick because the Commanders, you have to find pass rush. You have to.
Right. Yep. Rueben Bain's number 4. Mezzor's number 3 if you're watching the U. And Mezzor's a couple years older. He's played a little bit more ball, but he's gotten himself into top 100 conversation with the way he's played for sure. Let me ask you this before we move on. Different positions, but I want to get your thoughts because the physical, quote-unquote, shortcomings were an issue for this player when he was drafted. And the issues with Rueben Bain Jr. is that he's 275, which is maybe a little big for an edge rusher, but his arms are going to be short, and that's a concern for NFL teams historically. But you were in St. Louis/LA when you guys drafted Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald lasted to the middle of the first round because he was undersized. But you liked Aaron Donald, so you didn't overcomplicate it in that situation. Are we overcomplicating it here?
No, Aaron Donald was different. And I could tell you this, just giving you a peek behind.
But he lasted in the middle of the first round, though. That's my point.
Yeah, because the people couldn't get over the size. He was barely
right. That's what I'm saying.
He was at that time, he was 280. And I could tell you this, when I first watched, I remember our scout saying this guy could be the next Warren Sapp. And so when you say stuff like that to me, it automatically triggers me to want to dismiss you. And so I remember the first game I watched, and I was like, man, let me just watch him against Florida State so I can just kill it and be done with it. Watched him against Florida State. He balled out. And I was like, oh, Florida State's offensive line isn't that good. Let me watch him against Clemson. He killed it. Let me watch him against someone else. He killed it. And I was like, you know what? Like, this dude is legit. And then you go to the Senior Bowl, and this was the year Zach Martin came out, and Zach Martin was heralded as one of the best guys in the draft, and he was the only one at the Senior Bowl to beat Zach Martin consistently. And so I felt good naturally putting my blue grade on him and leaving it alone. To me, when you turn on the tape, a blue player is a blue player. That jumps out. There's no himmy and han. There's no going back and forth or what about and could it be. No, blue is blue. And if you're trying to decide if a player is blue or red, guess what? He's probably red because he's not blue. When you see blue on tape, it jumps out, and that's what Aaron Donald was.
Okay, so Rueben Bain Jr. is not unequivocally blue, is what we're saying.
At 100%.
Okay, all right, good. No, I'm glad we made that distinction. All right, next up. The New Orleans Saints, and I owe Tyler Shough an apology. I'm going to be doing this for a little bit here because my man has outplayed his draft status as 40th overall. You said earlier he could have even stuck into the first round with the way he played this year. Congratulations to him and Kellen Moore. They feel like they're on the same page. So, Saints fans, let me know this. Do you think that the Saints have found their guy in Tyler Shough? Because I'm curious what Saints fans think. We're getting to watch him for the second half of the season there. I had him taking Jeremiyah Love, and I want to get your thoughts on this. If you're rolling with Tyler Shough, and it feels like they are, and we know Alvin Kamara is near the end of his run in New Orleans. We know that number 7 is probably played his last game for the Saints. And if you're going to help your young quarterback, what better way to do it than with a guy who can certainly run the ball, but can also be a threat as a receiver, sort of in the mold of what Alvin Kamara brought to that team in his heyday.
Yeah, if you think about something that the Saints organization, I speak about this every draft season with them under Mickey Loomis. I feel like Mickey Loomis has been there forever. He's been the GM there for 20-something years. One thing they've always done is they've done a really good job of is drafting a year ahead of a need. Right. And so you look at the backfield, they've had multiple backfield tandems where it's like, do they need a back right now? Because they had Kamara and other guys there together, which allowed them to, have put the best weapons out there on the field and be creative with their packages and what they want to do. And if you look at Kellen Moore, if you go back to when he was the OC in Dallas, they had a strong running game. If you go back to his time in Philadelphia, they had a strong running game. So as much as we want to make this a passing lead, and we love where Tyler Shough has grown to be, they're still going to need help in the backfield, and have a guy that can take some things off for Tyler Shough and also just give you a legitimate threat for the play action game. And I think Jeremiyah Love is head and above the number 1 running back in his class. I think he warrants a top 10, top 15 pick. And so I know if he doesn't go here, he'll go somewhere else within that same range. But this is a good fit for him. This is a good fit for them. We'll see if Alvin Kamara comes back. I know he wants to be back, and I know there's a world where he could be back. But a tandem of these two, of Jeremiyah Love and Alvin Kamara, with, Tyler Shuck and Jawan Johnson, the way he's been playing at the tight end position. Chris Olave really came alive late. The amount of draft picks that they've spent on the offensive line, making sure they're fortifying that offensive line, is all, this is really building around your offensive-minded head coach who also calls the plays.
Yeah, and we're not even talking about quarterback here. That tells you how good Tyler Shuck has been down the stretch. So good for him. Next up, Kansas City Chiefs somehow picking into the top 9. The year of our Lord 2026. What a time to be alive here. What are you doing for the Kansas City Chiefs? Certainly you're going to help Patrick Mahomes, correct?
No, because, I can't help him rehab. I can't help him rehab. That's his biggest issue right now is the rehab. Let's say this: Josh Simmons, who they took at the bottom of the first last year, when he's on the field, he's a home run pick. Now, obviously, you're going to need some help at the right side of the offensive line. And I think they'll find that. But I went on the defensive side of the ball, and I went with Texas Tech pass rusher David Bailey. Now, again, you talk about an instinctive player, a player that's he's growing on me the more the process goes. Now, if you're judging him by the way he looks in his uniform, he is on the all-stank uniform team.
No gloves,
no swag,
socks.
naked arms, pants split, just no swag out there, none whatsoever.
He looks like a long snapper.
The guy just played. He looks worse than the long snapper. He is the dude that just. He is the dude that showed up to practice in Little League with the polo shirt over his pads. That was the only shirt he had available to him. But he just goes out and he just plays football, man. And he's instinctive. And if he can't get home, he does a good job of getting his hands up at the line of scrimmage, and he just plays hard. He fits Steve Spagnuolo defense. And let's see if Spags is even there in Kansas City. He's going to be getting some of these head coaching looks. But he is a good fit for them. They're losing Leo Chenal. You have George Kalafdis on the other side. It's to give him a bookend rush guy that fits the style of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and he single-handedly kept Texas Tech in that game last weekend against Oregon when the chips were consistently stacked against them. All right, next up, I think David Bailey legit has a chance to be a top 10 pick, and then he can upgrade his swag game day fit as well. The Bengals are on the clock here at number 10, and this was easy for me as the Cincinnati Bengals. It was either going to be David Bailey or your son, Caleb Downs. And since you took David Bailey, I'm taking Caleb Downs and regrouping and taking an edge rusher with my next pick. All the guys are coming back. So Bengals fans, let me know, number one, if you like Caleb Downs here to solve the many issues on defense at every level. He's going to play in the secondary, obviously. He can play in the slot. You can bring him down into the box, I suppose. And then number two, Bengals fans, let me know how you feel about the idea of Zach Taylor getting another run along with every other coach on that staff, because they're all coming back together. All right, that's it. Top 10 picks are in the book. When we come back, the Miami Dolphins are on the clock. It looks like Troy Aikman's going to help them find a GM. It looks like Mike McDaniel's going to be back. Who will be their quarterback in 2026? We will talk about that right after this break. All right, Rand, let's fire up these remaining picks here, 11 through 18. Let's get through this mock draft. The Miami Dolphins are on the clock here. Tua said he thinks it would be dope if he could go somewhere else to play. Mike McDaniel is not quite certain where Tua is going to be. He's open to bringing him back and having a competition. What are you doing for the Miami Dolphins at 11?
Miami Dolphins, I'm actually going with the receiver here, going Jordyn Tyson out of Arizona State, giving him another weapon in the passing game for whoever the quarterback is going to be. We'll figure that out. But I think they need another weapon there, especially with understanding where Tyreek Hill may or may not be. Even if he's healthy, I don't expect Tyreek Hill to be back with the Dolphins next year. So I went with the young Arizona State receiver, Jordyn Tyson.
Yeah, Jordyn Tyson has a chance to be wide receiver one if he can stay healthy. He's battled that at times the last two seasons. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys here. They have 2 first-round picks. This is their own. And I went with off-ball linebacker Sonny Styles out of Ohio State. He was one of the big talking points coming into this season, along with Caleb Downs. And then our guy Arvell Reese came out of nowhere and was dominant. And look, you could go edge rusher here. You could go secondary here. But I love the versatility that Sonny Styles brings. DeMarvion Overshown has struggled to stay healthy throughout much of his career, had a concussion to end his season back in Week 18 for the Cowboys. So the more bodies you can throw out there in defense, the better. And I love Sonny's athleticism. All right, things get interesting here at the LA Rams. Another team with 2 first-round picks. They're on the clock here by way of the Atlanta Falcons. What are you doing at 13 for LA?
So at 13, I went with Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. Obviously, with Matthew Stafford and the way he's playing right now, he's playing at an MVP level. Right now, just based off of teams in the tournament, they're my favorite team, or they're my pick to win the Super Bowl. I think if they win the Super Bowl, I think that's it for Matthew Stafford. What a way to go out and end your career. An MVP type season, a championship. I think that'll be the way to go out. But, McVay is still going to need his quarterback for the future. Even if, they don't win it, I think you'll see Matthew Stafford return for one more at least. And that would be a great spot for a young quarterback to sit behind him for a year and take the reins the following year.
Yeah, and you've talked about this before. You were in St. Louis/LA when you guys drafted Jared Goff. Sean McVay came the very next year, the first year in LA, and got a lot out of Jared Goff. And you've talked about how he just put enough on his plate where he can continue to grow. And I think that would be a great situation for Ty Simpson. Should he decide to come out this year, we're going to still have to wait to find that out. So this feels like best case scenario for Ty Simpson going to a place like the Rams. All right, pick 14, the Baltimore Ravens. Hugely disappointing loss in Week 18 on the road to Pittsburgh. Missed that last-second field goal. I mean, it was clear as day in that game and every other game that preceded. They desperately need help at edge rush. So I went with a guy you mentioned earlier here, Auburn edge rusher Keldric Faulk, who was built in the lab in terms of what he looks like as an edge rusher. He's still growing into his role. He's a young player. He flashed again this year. I thought he got better than his 2024 tape, so you want to continue on that trajectory. They moved on from Odafe Oweh, the trade deadline, and he just became a situational pass rusher for the Chargers and just dominated, had 5 or 6 sacks, I believe, over the second half of the season. I think Keldric Faulk has higher upside than that. He is that type of athlete, but I think he's bigger, stronger, and potentially faster. So the Ravens have to get better there. They could obviously go offensive line here as well. They have some holes they need to fill there in the interior, but instead, Keldric Faulk here for me. All right, let's take one more break here. When we come back, the Buccaneers are on the clock. We'll make our final 4 picks of this mock draft right after this. All right, Rand, 4 picks to go here in this modified mock draft, the top 18 picks, which are currently set for the non-playoff teams. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers currently find themselves on the clock. I would imagine you agree that Todd Bowles should return. He's had to answer those questions because of the way that season ended for them. What are you going to do for the Bucs and Todd Bowles, presumably?
Well, it's this would have been a nice landing spot for Keldric Faulk, or maybe there's another edge rusher to go here because they desperately need edge rush. But if you can't get after the passer, you better have people that can hold up in coverage. And so I went with LSU corner Mansoor Delane here at 15. I think Jamel Dean, I think his deal is up. They drafted the Benjamin Morrison kid out of Notre Dame, which I think he's going to be a solid corner for him. But the one thing that you got to have in a Todd Bowles defense is you got to have a secondary that wants to tackle. And I think this kid, he can not only cover, but he can tackle as well. And Jamel Dean, in my opinion, has really struggled this year in coverage and has just given up some plays for a veteran, a guy that's played as long as he played, shouldn't be giving up. So I think they'll be looking at some point to address the corner. So I went with Mansoor Delane.
Yeah, and this feels about the range where we're going to start seeing a run on these cornerbacks and probably middle of the first round, and Delane has every opportunity to be that cornerback one. All right, next up, the New York Giants with their second first-round pick. I had them taking Dante Moore, number 2 overall. And this time around, I'm going to take one of my favorite guys in this draft class, and you're warming up to him. I know you are. Washington wide receiver, 6'4", with return ability, Denzel Boston. And now you have Garrett Wilson, who's been begging for help forever. Now you have A.D. Mitchell, who they traded for when they got rid of everyone else on defense during the trade deadline. And I think he has an opportunity to continue to improve. And, of course, Denzel Boston to go with your franchise quarterback. And I'm going to shoot for the moon here, but I want your thoughts on this, Rand. Any chance this could be a Caleb Williams / Rome Odunze situation in a couple of years for the Jets?
And you took Dante Moore and you're pairing it. I mean, yeah. I mean, I could see the comparison of Rome Odunze. I thought Rome Odunze was faster. I thought he played faster than Denzel Boston. But I mean, yeah, I'm not going to shoot down your dreams at this point. So yeah, let's roll with it.
They got to find a coach and offense. I mean, they have a coach. They got to find an offensive coordinator and sort all that stuff out. But get your quarterback, get a wide receiver. It's a good place to start. Jets fans, let me know what you think of those 2 picks. If you're okay with those, you want to go in different directions, let us know in the comments. All right, 2 more to go here, Rand. Detroit Lions picking 17. Dan Campbell gave himself an F for how he performed this year. He's not sure if he will continue to call plays in 2026. They were banged up beyond recognition on defense. I thought Kelvin Shepard, the DC, did a pretty good job. What are you going to do for the Detroit Lions at 17?
So this is a tricky spot for me, especially with the type of roster that the Detroit Lions have. And by no means should they be picking 17th in this draft. They are a team worthy of picking beyond 25, let's just say, just due to how they play and the amount of talent. I could see them addressing the offensive line because of, guys getting up there. You do have an all-pro right tackle, but you have to address the offensive line, I think, at some point. The defensive line as well, I think they need edge. But I don't know that there's going to be an edge guy there. So I went with ultimately, and I know they've loaded up at this position. They've taken guys pretty high, but I went with Tennessee corner Jermod McCoy. No, he hadn't played much football, which may kind of disqualify him for what a Brad Holmes front office typically likes. But, man, if you go back and you watch his tape from last year, I dare you to find a corner that made more plays on the ball and just as athletic and can run like this guy. Because I know coming into the year, he was my cornerback one. And I was really excited to see him play this year. But unfortunately, he tore the ACL. I thought at some point he'll be able to return. And fully be able to be himself. And so really excited to see him move forward, go throughout this process, see where his health is, actually see him work out in person. But he would be a really good fit for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, physicality is one thing that Jermod is not short on when he's healthy for sure. All right, finally, the last pick of this top 18. All the teams that are no longer playoff eligible and the draft order set for these guys. The Minnesota Vikings are on the clock here. I would have loved to have gotten Caleb Downs if they didn't win quite so many games because, Harrison Smith is probably going to retire. They need help in the secondary as well, but we've just had a run on cornerbacks. So instead, I'm going to dip back into the pool that they dipped in last year. They took Donovan Jackson in the first round. I'm taking Kadyn Proctor this time around. He can play left tackle. If their left tackle can't stay healthy, and he certainly struggled with that, Christian Darrisaw, he can kick inside if he needs to. He can probably play right tackle as well because, Rand, it feels like we're rolling with J.J. McCarthy for another year. Any downside to continue to bolster an offensive line behind a quarterback who at times was frenetic in 2025?
No, it's no downside to it. Again, my big question here for a guy like Kadyn Proctor, conventional wisdom says he should be able to play right tackle. But it's really hard for these guys to kind of switch their feet and their hand placement. We drafted J.C. Latham, who had been predominantly a right tackle because Kadyn Proctor was playing left tackle. We played him at left tackle. And he played pretty solid for especially a really young guy that hadn't played the position probably since high school. But there were some technique flaws that he had to work his way through because you're switching the hands. And so it takes a little bit. It takes a little bit because it's muscle memory. So you have to retrain your body to do things a certain way. But, man, he's definitely a pick. And, again, you talk about this division. And then the fronts, and you're going to have to block Michael Parsons twice a year, or somebody's going to have to keep Michael Parsons off of J.J. McCarthy to keep him upright and healthy for him to play for you. And so continuing to bolster this offensive line would really help the Minnesota Vikings. All
right, Vikings fans, let me know what you think about that. And also let me know what you think about J.J. McCarthy. If you are willing to give him one more year, are you ready to move on from that? Excuse me. That sort of project. And if you're okay with the offensive line, continue to be a focal point here now that you're picking 18 if you're the Minnesota Vikings. All right, before we get out of here, one last thing. Let us know in the comments which one of these picks you like the most, and let me know in the comments which one of these picks by Rand made you the angriest, because I'm sure you loved all my picks. Only 3 quarterbacks went in the first round. Let me know if you're okay with that. And in the meantime, you can check out With the First Pick wherever you get your podcast. Scan that QR code. Find us on Apple Music. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. Check out With the First Pick. We will see you guys in the next one.